started with the faintest sound, a low creak that seemed to come from above. At first, I barely noticed it. The old house I had just moved into groaned and sighed like any structure of its age, a symphony of settling wood and shifting temperatures. But as the days went on, the sound grew more distinct. I moved into the house on the outskirts of town to get away from the noise of city life. It was a fixer-upper, sure, but the price was right, and the solitude was exactly what I'd been craving. The previous owners had left in a hurry, though the realtor glossed over why. I chalked it up to some personal drama and signed the papers without hesitation. The first night, the silence was almost suffocating. I could hear everything, the wind brushing against the windows, the ticking of my old wall clock, even the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. But around midnight, I heard it for the first time, a faint creak above my bedroom. It wasn't rhythmic, like the sound of a tree branch scraping against the house, and it wasn't random either. It sounded deliberate, like someone shifting their weight on the floorboards. I told myself it was nothing. The house was old. The attic's wood was probably just adjusting to the colder temperatures at night. Still, I couldn't help but feel a little uneasy as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and waiting for the sound to come again. It did. By the third night, I decided to investigate. The attic entrance was in the hallway outside my bedroom, a square hatch in the ceiling with a pull-down ladder. The previous owners had left it half-painted, the white of the new coat peeling away to reveal the dull brown underneath. I tugged on the cord, and the ladder creaked loudly as it unfolded, sending a shiver up my spine. The attic smelled like old wood and dust. My flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating piles of forgotten belongings left behind by the previous owners. Faded cardboard boxes, an old rocking chair, and a broken lamp. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the room itself was watching me. I inspected every corner, but there was no sign of animals or anything else that could be making the noise. Satisfied, I climbed back down and closed the hatch, trying to convince myself that I was just being paranoid. But the creaking didn't stop. In fact, it got worse. By the end of the first week, the noise came almost every night, usually around the same time, midnight. I started sleeping with earplugs, but even then, I could still feel the vibration of the creaks reverberating through the house. The sound had a weight to it, a presence that was impossible to ignore. I mentioned it to my friend Sarah over the phone. "You should probably call an exterminator," she said. "Could be rats or squirrels up there." "I didn't see any droppings or signs of nests," I replied, pacing around the kitchen. "And it doesn't sound like animals. It's too deliberate." She laughed nervously. "You're freaking yourself out. It's just an old house. Happens all the time." I wanted to believe her, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. That night I decided to set up a camera in the attic. I didn't have a fancy surveillance system, so I used my phone. I propped it up on a stack of boxes, hit record, and left it running overnight. The next morning, I hesitated before checking the footage. Part of me didn't want to know what it might show. My stomach churned as I opened the video and scrubbed through the timeline. For the first couple of hours, there was nothing but stillness. Then, around midnight, the screen flickered slightly. At first, I thought it was just a glitch, but then I saw it. The rocking chair in the corner moved, just a little, just enough to make me freeze. I rewound the footage and watched it again, heart pounding. The chair rocked forward, paused, and then rocked back. There was no wind, no sign of anything that could have caused it. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I called Sarah and told her everything. She suggested I come stay with her for a while, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. It felt like admitting defeat, like letting whatever was in the attic win. Instead, I decided to confront it head on. That night, I waited until the creaking started. Then, with a hammer in one hand and my flashlight in the other, I pulled down the attic ladder and climbed up. The rocking chair was still. The air felt heavier than before, thick and oppressive. I stepped carefully, shining the flashlight into every corner. "If someone's up here, you need to leave," I said, my voice trembling. "Nothing, just silence." I was about to turn back when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The far corner of the attic, behind a stack of boxes, looked wrong. The wood of the floor was darker there, almost black, and as I got closer, I realized it wasn't wood at all. It was a hole, a small, perfectly square hole, just big enough for someone to slip through. I knelt down, shining my flashlight into the opening. It revealed a narrow, hidden crawl space beneath the attic floor. My blood ran cold as the beam of light caught something glinting in the darkness. A pair of eyes. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight. The eyes disappeared, followed by a shuffling sound as whatever was down there retreated further into the crawl space. I scrambled down the ladder, slamming the attic hatch shut behind me and shoving a chair under it for good measure. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They searched the attic and the crawl space but found nothing. No eyes, no signs of anyone living there. They assured me it was probably just an animal and left, though I could tell they didn't believe their own explanation. I moved out the next day. I don't know what was in that attic, and I don't want to know. Sometimes I still hear creaking sounds at night, even in my new apartment. It's probably just my imagination, but I can't help but wonder if whatever was up there followed me, or if it's still waiting in the old house, hiding in the shadows, listening for the sound of footsteps on the attic ladder.